How is everyone this evening? Isn't this a great space, a wonderful theater, and we're going to have a terrific evening this evening. One of my favorite descriptions of photography is that very interesting old phrase, to fix the shadows. It says so much about how people thought about photography back then. It explains the magic of capturing a moment forever so that we can hold it in our minds. And today it's easy to forget just how amazing it was to the first people who made those images and looked at those images. And it was their exploration that changed the way we see the world, how we look at photography as art, and how we will continue to capture the world around us. Light is the medium. The art and the craft are in the infinite possibilities for composition, exposure, focus, color, and powered by inspiration and imagination, pushing the tools to their limits. Photography is the only universal language for documenting and communicating about our world because words aren't necessary. Language is not an obstacle. Honoring the art of imagery, the International Photography Hall of Fame and Museum celebrates 53 years of artistic excellence, technical innovation, and pure passion. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Dot Zac, made possible by Nancy and Ken Kranzberg. Nancy and Ken have made many things possible in Grand Center, including Grand Center. Bringing the International Photography Hall of Fame to St. Louis and Grand Center Arts District was one of them. We also want to thank the many lead sponsors for tonight's event: Collins and Herman, Emerson, Stewart Family Foundation, Thompson Street Capital Partners, Richard Miles, and Pat Whitaker, and the 2018 Induction events co-chairs, Jim and Stacy Cooper, and I think they all deserve a big round of applause. Just a little bit of background. IPHF was created by the Professional Photographers of America in Elkton, Illinois, as a nonprofit organization to promote awareness and education of the history of photography, collect, exhibit, and preserve historical items and images, and to honor significant contributors to the evolution of the art and science of photographic images. IPHF moved from Illinois to Santa Barbara, California, to the Brooks Institute, and on to Oklahoma City. 4 years ago, IPHF was looking for a new home as the building they were housed in closed. And after a nationwide search, the International Photography Hall of Fame and Museum settled into its new home here in St. Louis in the Grand Center Arts District. St. Louis is known for its intense passion for photography, with 12 institutions of higher education, over 35 high schools providing photography, and the first camera club in the USA. These are the kinds of things that a lot of St. Louisans don't even know about St. Louis. But they knew about it and decided to move here. The IPHF induction inspired St. Louis jewelry designer Adam Foster to create a medallion for the inductees, and medallions will be provided to past recipients or their families. It is a beautiful medallion, and it's heavy. A solid bronze camera lens, a work of art in its own right. And now, I would like to ask Richard Miles, Chairman of the Board, Bob Bishop, Chairman of the Induction Committee, to join me on stage to present the awards. And now, we proudly announce the 2018 inductees. Willard Sterling Boyle was a Canadian physicist, a pioneer in the field of laser technology, and co-inventor of the charge-coupled device, a major technology for digital imaging. And here to introduce Boyle is accomplished visual journalist and American Society of Media Photographers board member, Charles Stretch Ledford.
On behalf of the American Society of Media Photographers, welcome to the IPHF 2018 induction, and congratulations to all the inductees. 1969 was a year of convulsion and an era of upheaval. Pulitzer Prizes were awarded to Eddie Adams for his photograph of a summary execution on a Saigon street, and to Medea Sleet for his indelible image of Coretta Scott King at her husband's funeral. Away from the tumult in the fall of that year, a college student named Cynthia Boyle, now Cynthia Russell, was home for winter break wrapping Christmas presents for at her family's home in Summit, New Jersey. Her father, Dr. Willard Boyle, a research scientist at nearby Bell Labs facility, came home from work, walked into his daughter's room, and uncharacteristically began talking shop. "I think we just came up with something," he said, and proceeded to explain how what he'd come up with would one day change the world. An art history student, Cynthia listened politely, feigned interest, and quickly changed the subject to something she thought more practical, like what her mother might prepare for dinner that night. As described in their research notebook, what Dr. Boyle and his colleague, Dr. George Smith, had come up with in no more than an hour of brainstorming at the Bell Labs blackboard was a scheme for moving packets of charge along the surface of a semiconductor. The instrument they had invented, the charge-coupled device, or the CCD, was a sensor that could quickly and reliably transform light into manageable electronic charges, pixels. In 2009, Dr. Boyle and Smith were awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics for their scheme. And today it's easy to see how the CCD has indeed changed the world. Tom Kennedy, executive director of the American Society of Media Photographers, put it this way: "The CCD was a transformative technological change that catalyzed societal change. It advanced the visual language, photography and video as a means of communicating information in a fundamental way by making images instantly available for sharing across networks via the internet. So now we can share cute cat videos. And we can make selfies. And in near real time, we can look into the eyes of a refugee awaiting her fate at a less than friendly border crossing. And thanks to the 8 CCDs on the Hubble Space Telescope, we can peer back tantalizingly close to the beginning of time itself." Here to accept Dr. Willard Boyle's induction into the International Photography Hall of Fame is his daughter, Cynthia Russell.
Thank you so very much, Stretch. That was a wonderful tribute to my father. He would have loved being here. He was a photographer himself, but it is not for that he's being recognized tonight. It's for his invention of the charge-coupled device, as Stretch so wonderfully explained. What I thought you might enjoy, since many of you are photographers, is some photographs from an album that we have in our family, the one album from his childhood, 1935. My family looked at them, and using his technology, CCD software-based, we digitally altered them so it would bring his childhood to life. He grew up in northern Quebec, and he often thanked his mother for homeschooling him. They had no electricity. It was minus 50 degrees, no electricity, no plumbing. They had an outhouse. And somehow, or in spite of, because of, we don't know, he had a wonderful education. And he often thanked his mother. And, we don't have those photos. I was hoping to show you the photographs of him. One is of his mother standing outside a log cabin in 1935. Another one is of him with his, if you've read White Fang or Call of the Wild, that was his childhood. So thank you so very much. We certainly appreciate it on behalf of my family. And congratulations to the other inductees as well. Thank you very much. I should have shook your hand.
You think it's easy up here, huh? Walter Yost Jr. is known for his images of sports' greatest athletes. And here to introduce Yost is executive producer of video at Gold Digest and Walter Yost's son, Christian Yost.
Gold Digest, that's a new one. It's Golf Digest, I believe. So tonight I have the honor of introducing my father, Walter Yost. Best known to the world for his iconic sports images of the past 50 years, the catch, Jordan, every single Super Bowl, the swimsuit issue, and our family's favorite surfer, Kelly Slater. His career is full of famous images, but what's truly inspiring about him is that his same love of photography goes into taking pictures of his grandkids or our family dog, Fanny. His work and his life are intertwined. He brings his love of the shot everywhere he goes. Growing up, my brother Bjorn and I were lucky enough to share many experiences with him on the road that eventually led us both into the field of photography. I often get asked about trips we've taken together or athletes I've met because of his career, so I thought I'd share a quick one. In August of 1996, my father got a call to shoot a cover of Michael Jordan. He was exhausted after 4 weeks on the road, this is my dad, covering the Olympics, but it was Michael, his friend, his favorite subject, so he took the job in Santa Barbara and invited Bjorn and I to join him for 2 days. A few days later, we were in a massive ballroom at the Four Seasons, setting up with the crew and a cast of clients. Michael was late. 30 minutes went by, then 60. Finally, we got the word he was there. Michael entered the ballroom, and the first words out of my dad's mouth were, "Michael, you're late." Jordan stopped in his tracks and said, "F you, Walter." He turned around and walked out. There was a lot of nervous laughter and then panic from the clients, and the minutes ticked by. Finally, I just remember this feeling of panic. I felt like I was going to pass out. I was witnessing my father's career go up in flames in real time. A few minutes later, Michael came running around the corner, laughing, and said, "I got you guys." My dad and Michael hugged, they laughed, and they spent the next 10 minutes catching up. So if you know the person taking the picture, you have an even greater appreciation of the work you're creating together. From Michael Jordan to kids playing basketball, stickball in the streets of Cuba, my dad's ability to connect with his subject is unrivaled. And it's allowed him to create the iconic images that we're going to see here tonight. So we're going to celebrate that, and congratulations to my father.
It's always safe to have your son introduce you. Good evening, everybody, and I want to thank you for honoring me tonight and all the other inductees. Photographers never really get together, so for the other photographers and I, it's sort of special to be with each other. And obviously, there's some people I need to thank here tonight. My family. Parker. My wife, who was stood by my side while I was off gallivanting around. She took care of the house. Bjorn, Hedvig. To go to sport, there is a language, I think, that athletes can talk to athletes as musicians can talk to musicians, and I think it's a special bond that you can sort of sense things, like what Christian was talking about with Michael. Sometimes you didn't have to say anything, but you knew what to do. All athletes want to get out of their room, and I think people think photographers, and when you look at pictures, oh, they must have had hours to do this. I've had 1-minute shoots, 2-minute shoots on stopwatches. Everything happens quickly, but the job of a photographer is to get the job done, and no one wants excuses when you go back to the office. So you work under pressure, that's the joy of the job. And I'd like to thank Jim and Stacy, of course, for their generosity, bringing me out here, and everyone who inducted us and my family. I've been in the business longer than the museum. I don't know if that's good or bad. So I've been working for 57 years. I think I've got 4 more years on the museum. I had my first shoot 2 weeks after high school, and I've worked ever since. And who would have thought I'd be in the Hall of Fame? I want to thank everybody. It's the greatest honor. Good night.
John Loengard was Life magazine's picture editor, whose photographic essays have become classics. Here to introduce him is editor of creative development at Vogue, David Friend.
Thank you. Oh, it's Vanity Fair, not Vogue, but there we go. We're going to combine Vogue and Gold magazine later. In 1956, Life magazine hired John Loengard fresh out of Harvard. He quickly earned his place as the photo staff's resident artiste. He was contemplative, brainy, a lone wolf. And over time, John would become a modern master of the black and white photo essay. His most enduring stories on one of the last surviving Shaker communities, on artist Georgia O'Keeffe, on his family's summer home in Maine, and many, many more, are benchmarks of the genre. He also distinguished himself as one of the medium's most enterprising environmental portraitists, whose exquisitely composed images are in the collections of distinguished museums across the country. Little surprise, then, that before long, American Photography magazine would brand John, brand John as Life magazine's most, quote, influential photographer. In the 1970s, after a stint helping start People magazine, John will forgive you for that, he was named Life's director of photography, working on special editions, then on the relaunched monthly magazine where I met him. And in that role, he shaped the careers of a generation of photojournalists with his reputation for being imaginative, for being demanding, and for being self-assured. As his longtime deputy, Bobby Baker Burroughs, once put it, there was no uncertainty in any fiber of his body. John was known in the business as a cross between a taciturn, photographic Yoda and a tough-love football coach. He was a defender of photographers against the editors, many of whom valued words over pictures, believe it or not. And he was always conveying to his peers at Life magazine that the photojournalist was king. He was also had a reputation for his keen intelligence, for his ethical backbone, and for being a great friend and mentor, and what a mentor. John would goad photographers before assignments, insisting that they attempt not only the improbable, but the impossible. Photographer Brian Lanker once observed that such pre-assignment conversations, quote, open the doors for me perceptually. I would always be looking for what's out there that I'm not thinking of. It was life-changing. So often, you approach an assignment, you put yourself in a box, but on an assignment, you have no lid. An assignment has no sides. It's totally open. You go out and look fresh, and John taught that to me. John would go on to a career as an educator an editor of distinguished volumes of photography, and a photo historian and critic, becoming one of the most astute writers about photography. And through it all, he continued making pictures. He's renowned for his tour de force study, celebrating the negative, followed up by his book, Age of Silver. I suggest all of you get it, for which he photographed photographers, their environments, and their negatives. John said, I realized that the negative had become an obsolete industrial artifact. He was among the early industry leaders, as you can tell, to foresee that the charmed world of silver and paper given time, would fall away and be replaced by an expanding universe of digits and pixels. John Loengard adopted the role of the alchemist in reverse, one who knew the secret process for using silver to create something elemental, which is a slice of timelessness. In my view, John Loengard has no peer. Ladies and gentlemen, congratulate John.
David, as you know, is a writer, and you don't have to believe anything that he says. But after all that he said, my good fortune is that I don't have to say anything. And I'd rather let my pictures stand for themselves. But I do want to thank the Hall of Fame of Photography. And I want to thank you for being the audience that you are, and that has seen the world of photography from the expanding to the point of the laboratory, going to the most private documents in a diary that might have been made. In other words, completely open to the field that all of my colleagues think is the most wonderful field in the world. So thank you for being the audience that you are.
Susan Meisalas is a documentary photographer known for her work on human rights issues in Latin America. Here to introduce Meisalas is Stephen Thetford, President of the Professional Photographers of America.
Thank you. On behalf of the Professional Photographers of America, I want to extend my congratulations and appreciation to the International Hall of Fame for what a wonderful work you have done and continue to do here as you are seeing tonight. Like many of us, Susan Meisalas found her career and extraordinary talent somewhat by accident. After studying childhood education at Sarah Lawrence College, Meisalas taught at an elementary school in the South Bronx, where she experimented with the camera as a tool for learning. Meisalas used photography as a way for her students to come together despite cultural differences and to discover the neighborhood around them. It was not always about the art, but about the process of engagement. The spirit has fueled her career as a documentary photographer. Meisalas is best known for her coverage of the Nicaraguan Revolution and extensive documentation of human rights issues for over a decade in Latin America. When she arrived in Nicaragua in 1978, she was the first female photographer to document the war. Her published color work offered an in-depth perspective on the popular insurrection that led to the overthrow of the Somoza dictatorship. Meisalas has authored numerous books, worked collaboratively on the production of 6 films, and has received several prestigious awards, including the MacArthur and Guggenheim Fellowships and a Lucy Documentary Award as well. Meisalas has acted as the president of the Magnum Foundation since its foundation in 2007. it is my pleasure to present 2018 International Photography Hall of Fame inductee, Susan Macelas.
Thank you so much. I just want to say it's particularly special for me tonight because I am following John Longard, who is one of the first editors who gave me a job. And I didn't know how to be a photographer. And I had done work on carnival strippers, and so he probably was wondering what I might do next. And it certainly wasn't going to lead me to Nicaragua in any predictable way. So I think I do want to thank John, as well as, of course, I'm honored to be with the other inductees, but just to think back that many decades ago and that he trusted that I would figure it out. And a lot of life has been just figuring it out. So I'm honored to be also part of the Professional Photographers Association. I would never thought I was a professional photographer. I just sort of thought of myself as a witness to our time. And I thought about what I was seeing as history, not news, but something we needed to think deeply about for probably a long time, longer than our lifetimes. So thank you very much.
John Sexton is best known for his luminous, handcrafted, traditional silver gelatin black and white photographs of the natural environment. Here to introduce Sexton is Dr. Michael Adams, son of the late photographer and inductee to the Hall of Fame, Ansel Adams.
Thank you. Magic occurs in John Sexton's darkroom. An image emerges, exciting him and allowing the poignant recollections of the experience he felt and wanted to render in a print. John's love of photography, the appreciation of the tactile quality of holding an original silver gelatin black and white print was in part inspired by my father, Ansel Adams. Sensitivity to nuance, intuition, and compassion, plus the discipline of knowing the craft as a second nature, allowed John to make images and prints that express his genuine being and that of his subjects with simplicity and elegance. I have known John Sexton since the mid-1970s, when he first studied with Ansel and when Ansel asked John to become his technical assistant in the darkroom. From his participation in and direction of Ansel Adams' creative workshops at the Ansel Adams Gallery in Yosemite, he is perhaps the most articulate and authoritative spokesman about Ansel. John is also sought after as a teacher and a consultant. It is my honor to introduce our deserving friend, John Sexton, as an inductee in the International Photography Hall of Fame.
Wow. That's quite an introduction. It's amazing to me to be included in such a distinguished group of photographers with legendary images and careers, and it is very humbling. I had the opportunity to study with, become friends with, and to teach with a photographer, an International Photography Hall of Fame inductee, Ruth Bernhard. And she often made the statement that a photographer's signature should be visible in their prints from a much greater distance than you can read the signature on the mat. I hope that you have the opportunity to visit the Hall of Fame Museum with the current inductee exhibitions so that you can see the signatures of the photographers this evening in their prints. And I'm honored to be a part of that. I first became excited about photography and first fell in love with photography on Christmas night 1969 when my best friend in high school received a photographic enlarger as a Christmas gift. We stole a strand of Christmas tree lights. He knew enough to steal also the red bulbs. And I saw a print emerge in a developer tray for the first time. I had never seen magic like that before. It's been quite a few thousands of sheets of photographic paper that have passed through developer stop, fix, toning, and washing over the years. But when the print makes your heart beat in the same way as what you imagined when you thought about making the photograph, it still is indeed magic. I want to thank Patty Wente, her dedicated team at the International Photography Hall of Fame and Museum for honoring me in this way. I feel so humbled. I also want to thank my wife, Anna Larson, a talented photographer in her own right, because without her efforts, I would not be able to do what I do. We are a team together. I was so blessed to have the experience to study with and unexpectedly and later work for Ansel Adams. When I attended at age 20 as a photography major, his 1973 Yosemite workshop, where I first met Michael and Jean Adams, I expected a lot. I got more than I expected or could have imagined. I expected to learn a lot about photography. My photography was forever changed from that 2-week experience because of Ansel, because of the other faculty members and the staff. I had my life changed as well because what I saw in their work, in their dedication to sharing of photography, was the fact that photography was an integral part of their lives. They approached photography with love, and I consider myself to be an amateur photographer, but considering it not as a dilettante, but someone who does it for the meaning of the word itself, to love something. That does not mean that you don't pursue it with professional rigor. Ansel used to often say, the harder you work, the luckier you get. I have been very lucky. Thank you.
The International Photography Hall of Fame and Museum recognizes individuals and organizations notable for their lifetime of service, innovation, and artistry to the field of professional photography. 2018 Lifetime Achievement Award recipient Joel Bernstein is an acclaimed photographer whose work, spanning more than 3 decades, chronicles the inner lives and public moments of some of the most important singers, songwriters, performers, and musicians of our time. Here to introduce Bernstein is singer-songwriter, musician, and 2016 Hall of Fame inductee, Graham Nash.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to everybody at the organization and for Patty for inviting me to do this. In January of 1969, I was living in Laurel Canyon with my girlfriend, Joni. And one day, a postman brought a box to the house. Now, I've been a photographer longer than I've been a musician. And so I knew the shape of this box. It was 11 by 14, about an inch high, and had the word Kodak written on the side, you know. So I knew what was going on. I said, "What do you think this is, Joan?" She said, "Oh, those are from my friend Joel in Philadelphia. Open them up." I opened up the box, looked at the images. The moments were perfect. The composition was brilliant. I said, "Hey, this guy's got some really good work here. I'd really like to meet him." She said, "Well, he is male, but he's not a man. He's actually only 17 years old." I said, "Well, I still would like to meet him." She said, "Well, you're going to get a chance, because on February the 1st in 1969, Joni gave her first concert at Carnegie Hall in Manhattan, and Joel was there. That's the first day that I met him. Now, tomorrow you're going to watch Joel in his presentation, and you're going to see, you know, him being in the midst of me and David and Stephen and Neil and Joni and Prince and Bruce Springsteen and Tom Petty. You're going to see the whole thing. Almost 50 years to the day that I first met Joel, it's my honor to present him with the Lifetime Achievement Award from the International Photographers Hall of Fame, my very best friend, Joel Bernstein.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Okay, thank you so much. I don't know what to say. This is amazing. I am so grateful to stand before you on this occasion, and so humbled to find myself in the company of not only the greats already selected by the IPHF, but also that of my fellow inductees, each of whom are at least as distinguished in their chosen fields as I am in mine. In thinking about this great honor, I was reminded of this well-known quote from Isaac Newton: "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. For I could never have reached this point without having been initially inspired by the work of the true masters of this medium from 1839 to today. And secondly, those whose work I later aspired to in the photography of musicians, Jim Marshall, David Garr, and Barry Feinstein. I'm deeply indebted to my parents, Stanley and Charlotte, for giving all of their children the encouragement to seek out and find our passion, and for their unqualified love and support of each of us. As the oldest of 5, one reason I'm beaming tonight is that all 4 of my dear brothers and sisters have joined us here to celebrate this special occasion. Thank you. Yeah. Deborah, Stephen, David, and Sarah, I could never overstate just how much your lifelong love, encouragement, and support of my work has meant to me. I am thrilled that each of you made room in your more than busy lives to be here this evening. I am forever indebted to Joni Mitchell, subject of the first photo I developed and printed by myself. Her asking me to be her photographer when I was still 16 set me on the decades-long path to this moment. I'm similarly indebted to Neil Young for choosing my photograph to be the cover of his After the Gold Rush album 2 years later. I'm also deeply, deeply grateful to my dear and true friend, Graham Nash, with whom it's been my pleasure to collaborate on countless projects in photography and music for nearly 50 years, during which we shot, developed, printed, sang, played, recorded, and performed together. His becoming one of the earliest collectors of exceptional historic photographs enabled me to view hundreds of original prints by those who are lionized in the IPHF, which to me is actually the Hall of Superheroes. Others who deserve my special thanks for their continued support of my work over the years include David Crosby, Stephen Stills, Jackson Browne, Tom Petty, and Bruce Springsteen. In addition, I want to thank Graham's wife, Amy, my two dear friends, Mary and Sadie, my in-laws, Arnie and Gail, and my niece, Mindy, for their love and encouragement and for making the effort to be here tonight.
We're almost done, kid.
And so, thank you. It is with deep gratitude and appreciation that I accept this Distinguished Lifetime Achievement Award and can only hope that history will concur that my lifetime of photographic work is distinguished enough to be worthy of this esteemed honor. Beginning now, when I look through the lens of this award, I'll be seeing the faces and great work of my esteemed fellow inductees, my honorees. My deep and sincere thanks to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now please help me congratulate the Lifetime Achievement Award winner and the International Photography Hall of Fame class of 2018 inductees. Ah, yes, but the night is young. There are books for sale upstairs, and please look to buy them and get them signed tonight. It would be a great opportunity to get them signed, wouldn't it? We ask you now to join us for a celebration dinner, a fun presentation on the 4th floor. There is an elevator on your left, depending on which way you're looking, but there will be people out there to help you. Or stairs on your right as you exit the auditorium. Thank you for coming.